Okay, so we're recording, so kind of, yeah, please proceed.
Sure. Let me turn my camera on. Um, Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Kenneth Johnson. I'm from the Community Affairs team at the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. I just want to share just a few health department updates with you all, just regarding some of our uh, current or recent press releases, and then I also just want to kind of give a heads up to some of our programming. Again, I have a colleague who I hope will be joining us in a few minutes. However, if she's not able to join, I can share some high level information about um, 311 and what happens when a person submits a 311 complaint for rat activity, and kind of the process that our pest control unit goes through during the inspection process. Um, but just briefly, so just I'll start off with some general health department updates. Uh, Over the last few months, our press office has released a couple notices. The first being just a notice that as it gets warmer outside and we have as we know, as we get into spring and summer, we have folks opening up their windows. We just want to advise people that window guards do save lives, and last year there were 9 window falls among children 10 years of age or younger. Unfortunately, 2 of those were fatal. And then, in terms of prevention, if there is an apartment where a child lives, if there's an apartment where a child is 10 years old or younger, the property owner, the landlord, must install window guards on windows that are not emergency exits. And this is at the request of the tenant. If the building owner refuses to install window guards, we advise tenants to call 311, and the health department and HPD can intervene on the tenant's behalf. So that's just one of the first pieces that I wanted to share with you all. Um, and I can link these press releases in the chat and also send them over to you afterwards, Carla, if that works.
Okay, sure.
Okay, great. Um,
So what about the May schedule for Rat Academy? I know I sent out the April schedule. Is there a um I haven't seen a May one come through yet. Is that in the works or is
um, So it looks like we have a couple Rad Academies scheduled for so in the Bronx. Well, also, so we have 2 virtual Rad Academies in the month of May. One on May 14th and the other on May 21st. We also have an in-person Rad Academy that is hosted at the Children's Aid Society. That's on May 23rd in the evening. I'm happy to share the registration link to that as well. That is on Minford Place. Um, that's We do have one more virtual Rad Academy scheduled in June. That is the extent of our schedule at the moment. We are, of course, we're always able to accommodate in-person requests with enough notice. I think right now we're probably looking at June in terms of scheduling an in-person Rad Academy at the earliest. Um, but yeah, that's our schedule as it stands right now.
okay, good. I mean, we send them out to our full community distribution lists when they come through. And
Okay.
we encourage everyone to attend one if you have any reason, if they have any reason to think there may be rat activity in their communities.
Absolutely. I just shared a link in the chat to our upcoming Rat Academy schedule. This has the links to all the virtual registrations and the locations of the in-person Rat Academies and their respective registration links. I will also share the link to the previous press release that I mentioned about window guards. And then lastly, before I dive into some of the pest control documents and processes, I do just want to share just a quick update. So we lately, the health department has observed a handful of cases of people who have experienced botulism, which is associated with cosmetic injections with botulinum, excuse me, or Botox, commonly known as Botox. And so the active ingredient in Botox injections is a toxin, and if administered incorrectly or without the proper medical supervision, this can cause damage to the nervous system. So we have noticed several cases of these. Usually people are receiving these injections and from a friend or at a party or a non-medical, non-clinical setting. And so of course we want to advise against that. And of course if people are seeking these kind of services, we absolutely recommend that they go to a licensed medical provider to receive these services. Again, this is a very small amount of cases that we've observed, but of course, the adverse effects can be pretty severe. So we do want to share that and alert folks to that as well. So that those are just a couple brief health department updates, and then now we can go ahead and get into some of the pest control concerns that you all have or may have had. So I'll start off with kind of a brief overview of what happens to 311 complaints, and then of course I'll try my best to answer any questions that you all may have. Just with the caveat that our team does work really closely with our pest control unit, but I don't actively participate in a lot of the inspections, and so some of the questions I may have to take a note of and then get back to you all later. So with that, I'll go ahead and dive in here. Of course, as you all know, 311 is the city's mechanism to kind of lodge complaints from constituents, from concerned community members, and of course, people can submit complaints on a myriad of issues, and the one that we're here to talk about tonight are the pest control issues, rat activity, and so there are a few ways that we receive complaints through 311 is the most common one. These complaints are routed automatically to our pest control unit. So when we receive a 311 complaint, we generally try to inspect the property, within 2 weeks. Sometimes, it can take, during some of the busier times of year, especially the warmer months, it can take maybe a little longer. But generally speaking, we try to visit properties within 2 to 3 weeks of receiving the complaint. One thing that I think is really important to note when people are making complaints is that it really helps us to identify the location if we have an exact address. And so, when people are able to make 311 complaints, there's a space for, a location, and, oftentimes people will say, oh, I saw, a few rats in the street near the intersection, and they'll name off 2 streets. That while that may be the case and that may be what the community member has observed, that doesn't really help us to identify exactly where the problem is coming from. And of course, we understand that community members might not know exactly where these rats are coming from, and we totally get that. But when we do inspections, we inspect properties, exterior areas around properties, and so it really helps us if we have the address, and then of course, there's space. When you're calling, you can let the phone operator know additional information, and of course, there's a text box option to share more information there as well. Another thing to note is that DOHMH Pest Control is responsible for exterior inspections. So, we can inspect, the areas of the building that we can see from the street. If a concerned community member or complainant wants us to come inside the building, we generally, those kind of inspections are handled by HPD, interior pest issues. However, we can be, if we're granted access into the building, then, we can come inside. But generally speaking, our pest control unit only does inspections for the outside of buildings. I think that's, something that, maybe people don't always think about or consider, because, you think about pests and rats and you automatically think of, pest control in the health department. But, in order for us to go inside, we have to be granted access. So another thing that, we ask, before people submit a 311 complaint, sorry if there's any background noise, there's an ambulance that just went by. So another thing, we do have our rat portal online, which can be found at nyc.gov/rats. This has recent inspection results for every property in the city of New York. And so, we always recommend that, if people are kind of curious about what's going on in the neighborhood or nearby properties of concern, you can look up, the property exactly and see the last time we inspected. If we inspected recently, it's likely that there could be open complaints at this location. If there is an open complaint at a specific address and a person submits another complaint for the same address, that complaint will be immediately closed out because we already have an active complaint. So that means that the inspection has already been added to our queue, or the complaint has already been added to our list of properties to inspect. And so, I say that because, sometimes people see that their complaint is labeled as a duplicate and immediately closed out, and they may become frustrated or not understand why. And that's the reason why. We often can get multiple complaints about the same address, and as a result, any duplicate complaints will automatically be closed out. So, when the inspection takes place, what are we looking for? So, as I said before, we inspect the exterior parts of the building. We look for signs of rats, which can be, of course, rats, but also, conditions that can attract rats. When we're talking about signs of rat activity, we're looking for, tracks, droppings, of course, burrows where the rats live, any active runs, which is, rats have an oily coat, and so when they often traverse the same path, we can see evidence of the oil from their fur and from their skin on different parts of the building. And then, of course, rats' teeth grow very, very quickly, and as a result, they're constantly chewing on things. And so we look for evidence of, chewing on parts of the building, on wood, brick, even metal. Rats' teeth are very strong, and as I said before, they're constantly growing, and so they will chew on basically anything. And so these are some of the signs that let us know that there are rats living nearby, or coming to this area. And of course, it's important to understand that, generally speaking, rats are usually they're after food. And so oftentimes, we come and inspect buildings. We can issue summons and violations, but ultimately, if the conditions that are attracting rats remain, the rats will always come back. And so, that's why the health department's working with our city agency partners. Sanitation has a big push to containerize a lot of the trash and really change the way that we're disposing of a lot of our garbage, because oftentimes improper disposal of garbage is a huge attractor of rats, and that's more often than not where a lot of these complaints come from. And you'll see that properties change how they dispose of their garbage, and then they effectively solve their rat problem because there no longer is a food source for the rats to come to.
Yes,
Um,
very sorry I had to get rid of my bird feeder because I was afraid.
right, right.
You know,
That's one of the sacrifices we have to make, unfortunately. Um, So, okay, so now we'll go through the process of an inspection. Um, when we get a complaint, we go out, we conduct our inspection. If the property, we'll go out and conduct our first inspection, or as we call it, it's our initial inspection. So the initial inspection is a we come and we review the property, walk around the grounds. If there's evidence of rat activity or conditions that could attract rats, we will fail. The property will fail inspection. This will be noted on the rat portal. You'll see either an initial inspection or a compliance inspection. The initial inspection, of course, is the first inspection. The compliance inspection is the final inspection. Now, if a property fails its initial inspection, we will issue a notification to the property owner, and this is called a commissioner's order to abate, or what we call a CODA. And so they'll receive a copy of this at the inspection. And if the property owner is not around, we will mail them a copy of this CODA. And so the CODA will includes the inspection report. It includes notes from the inspector and what they've observed on the property. It'll also include our recommended guidance on how to address the conditions. And of course, we're always at this point, we encourage property owners, if they don't know how to solve some of the problems that they're seeing or the problems that are noted in the CODA, we really encourage them to reach out to us directly for assistance, because our pest control unit is happy to provide more guidance on and recommendations on how to specifically address some of the concerns or some of the conditions that we see. This could involve, patching up holes on exterior or interior parts of the building. We talked about disposing of trash properly, making sure that areas are free of refuse and other types of garbage. And so we're always available to offer that extra guidance, because at the end of the day, we don't want to find folks. We don't want this isn't about collecting revenue. This is about helping people have clean communities, healthy communities, clean streets. And we want communities to be free of rats. But of course, at the end of the day, the responsibility of maintaining the property and keeping the property free of rats, that's the responsibility of the property owner. But of course, we want to support property owners as much as we can in this effort.
but
Now,
I have one
yes.
quick question. So on the rat portal, a property that's been deemed to have rat activity is that lovely shade of magenta.
Correct.
Then there's like this purple color that says failed inspection for other reasons. So can you shed some light on what other reasons means?
Yeah, so it's there are several reasons why a property won't pass inspection, and it can fail for other reasons. Generally speaking, this is because maybe the owner is already is aware of the rat activity and taking steps to correct it. As such, we or if there's kind of structural issues or infrastructure issues that need to be taken care of that are maybe outside of the property owner's control, we don't want to hold that against them. But at the same time, if these conditions are conducive to rat activity and can attract rats, we can't pass that property. And so I'm happy to I would love to give you a little bit more in-depth information on that. I just I'm not super familiar with what exactly the conditions are to meet that requirement. But you do see it's rare, but there are properties that fail for other reasons. And that's, it's usually very kind of unique circumstances. But again, I'm happy to follow up with some of our pest control folks and get you a bit more clarity and information on that.
Okay, does anyone have any questions right now? Anybody else on the call?
I have one caller.
Sure.
What is your relationship with Metro North when it comes to rats?
Oh,
Metro North being the train, the
The
commuter
commuter
train.
rail, yeah.
So what what is this in regards to? Is there
A rat problem,
issues
that's
from
all.
at the station?
At the station, yes.
Okay, so Metro North would be responsible for abating their own conditions at their stations, and this is true for other agencies as well. MTA, New York City Public Schools, other agencies, NYCHA, for example. All of these agencies have their own branches that conduct rat mitigation efforts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question.
Hi, Kenneth.
Yes,
Thank you so much for your time this evening.
of
The
course.
other thing that I just want to know, what's your thoughts about this new birth control?
Oh, I think it's a very interesting premise. I'll be honest with you. I don't know a ton about the implications of kind of sterilizing all the rats. I think that these kinds of overreaching scientific interventions can be very complicated, and I think there's a lot of outcomes to consider, before implementing something like that. I have heard about it, but I confess I don't know a ton of information about what it would look like. But I appreciate that comment. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I just kind of thought about it like, is it going to cause them to do something else, to be something else, to turn into something else, when you start dibbling and dabbling? But thank you. Thank you. I
Yes.
appreciate your answer.
Of course, yeah. Now, I will say on that note, there was a case, there was, I think it was an owl. It was an owl at one of the zoos in the city, or maybe an owl in Central Park, I believe. And it died. It died from ingesting pesticides from eating so many rats. The pesticide had built up inside of its body, and then the owl died of poisoning as a result. And so, again, there's, these kind of unforeseen consequences that I think, we definitely collectively have to consider, when we're moving to kind of put these large scale projects into effect. It's just, I heard it a few weeks ago. I think it couldn't have been more than maybe six months ago, but also a very interesting story. So,
okay.
right. Oh, yes.
Any other questions from everybody on the phone?
Yes, I have a question. I'm not sure if Kenneth will be the one to answer it, but I see on the news that they say with the new rat czar that things are getting better in the city, but during trash days walking around my neighborhood, I see a lot of rats. So statistically, Kenneth, are you able to say, or can you speak to if the rat czar is making a difference, or is things still the same?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, there are a couple things to note. The Having the rat czar, I think, is definitely a huge help in our efforts, especially in terms of kind of coordinating with other city agencies. This position is kind of like a mayoral office position, housed in City Hall, excuse me, I believe. And so, they're able to bring together the health department, other city agencies to the table and kind of really tackle some of these challenges. We've, the health department has worked with New York City Public Schools, and the Rat Czar has been instrumental in kind of helping us build some of these partnerships, to kind of address some of the problems, that stem from, kind of improper disposal of trash, at some of the local schools, and kind of streamlining some of the way that they dispose of their trash. That's of course that kind of collaboration was possible before the appointment of the Rat Czar, but having someone who's dedicated to tackle specific pest control and rat activity problems has definitely been a help. And then to your point about trash collection, I think one of the major problems or major challenges that we have right now is the city really wasn't built to dispose of all of the trash that we create. And so, I know there's a huge effort on the part of DSNY to really, kind of figure out, some of the most effective ways to dispose of trash that doesn't involve, having trash all over the sidewalks, on trash collection day. So I know there's some big things to come there. I don't know a ton about what's in the pipeline on the DSNY side. But I know that, the way that we handle and dispose of our trash is key in kind of addressing some of the rat issues that we see in the city. And I'm sorry if that didn't completely answer your question, but I know I'm sure our colleagues at DSNY would have more information to share about trash collection specifically.
No, it was a concise answer, so thank you, Kenneth. It did answer it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So we're almost done here. I just want to kind of go over, just finish out this mock inspection that we have, and then if there's any more questions, I'm happy to to stay on and chat more. So where we left off, we were talking about the initial inspection, right? And so if a property fails the initial inspection, they get a letter from the commissioner, details what we've seen, what we recommend they do to address the issues, and then of course we're available to assist later. So we when we leave the property, or it's with the when we leave when we finish the initial inspection, it's with the assumption that we will return for a final inspection or compliance inspection. So at this point, we haven't issued any fines. This is just the commissioner's order to abate, and we're letting them know, hey, we've seen these issues on your property. You need to fix this. This is what we recommend. We will be back for a final inspection to see if you've done if you've taken the necessary steps to address the issues. Now, we during busier times of the year, of course, in spring and summer being some of the busier times, it can take a little longer for us to return for compliance inspection, but generally it's a few weeks. So within a month, I think generally speaking we'll return for the compliance inspection, and this gives the property owner time to kind of take measures on their end, whether they need to patch up holes or even hire external help, or outside pest control help. This gives them an opportunity to kind of assess the situation and figure out the best way to tackle those issues. So we return for the compliance inspection. So this is the final inspection. At this point, we already have a record of what we saw before, but we still inspect the entire property, just to make sure that maybe nothing has bubbled up in the meantime. At this point, we hope that the property passes. We hope that the property owner has taken the necessary steps and addressed the concerns that we've mentioned. And if that's the case, the property passes. Congratulations, thank you, and then we move on. Now, if the property fails, if the property owner hasn't taken the necessary steps to address the concerns, we at that point will issue a summons, and a violation, a fine, and the summons is a summons to a hearing at the Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings, or OATH as it's commonly referred to. And so at this point, they'll receive the date of their hearing, and they'll receive the time of their hearing. And then, at the, property owners we'll go to these hearings, and if a property owner believes that that maybe we had it wrong, and they actually address the issues, the hearing is their opportunity to do that. There are no fines assessed until the hearing. When a property fails the compliance inspection, we don't write a ticket. It's not one of those things that you have to pay. Once you go to your hearing, then oath will determine whether or not the fine is assessed. And then it's important to note that if the property does fail a compliance inspection, there's at that point the hearing is set, and only oath can assess whether or not the property owner must pay their fine. So pest control, Department of Health cannot retroactively take away the violations. Only oath can assess whether or not the violations are substantiated. And I just say that because oftentimes our team will get complaints about people that will their properties will fail compliance inspections, and they'll want us to reinspect and kind of reevaluate our findings, and that's we can go and reinspect, but of course once you receive the summons, you have to take it up with oath. So what happens if you have a property owner who they're inspected often, they're a source of their property is a source of rat activity, they're not disposing of their garbage, they're not addressing the violations that we find on their property. So when we have these properties of concern, as I said previously, it is the responsibility of the property owner to really take action and address the issues. But we understand that some landlords, some property owners, for whatever reason, don't do that. And it's not fair for the rest of the community if you have an absentee landlord or a property owner that fails to take the necessary steps to fix the problems on their property. So in these extreme cases, the health department can perform extermination work on the property. We can bait the property, and then we can come back and monitor the property and perform additional work as needed. But I do want to stress that, this is rare, and this is by emergency basis. And so this isn't something that we're able to do on a routine basis at, your neighbor's property who, maybe they're not disposing of their trash properly. These are, very rare and unique and more extreme cases. When we do this extermination work, any work that we do on the property, we bill to the property owner. So this isn't a free service. This isn't something that we can continue to do on a regular schedule. But we understand that there are unique circumstances where we might have to actually go out and perform extermination work ourselves. Excuse me. And at which point, as I said, we will bill the property owner for those services. So how much can some of these fines range, or how much would a person have to pay at their hearing? So, as I said before, all of the fines are assessed by oath. Any property owner who has a hearing and they decide not to show up, they risk having their fines doubled by oath. And I will say that the minimum fine amount is $300 and the maximum amount is $2,000. I don't know how often those fines are assessed. But of course, as some extreme cases warrant extreme action. And so with that, that really covers the process. I will just close by saying, one of the things that we've noticed in the past is that, there may be property owners, let's say if you own your home and you're having issues with rat problems, rat activity, the person may submit a 311 complaint and they'll use their own personal address. If that happens, if a person does that, they have effectively made a rat complaint against themselves. And so when we come out and inspect, we will assess the situation and they will receive a CODA and then of course a summons if it fails the compliance inspection. I don't, this doesn't happen very often, but sometimes people reach out for help and they accidentally end up making a complaint against themselves. So I do just want to flag that, please, if you're having issues, don't make a complaint against yourself. This is more for, sharing rad activity that you see in your community, at, buildings where, there's improper disposal of garbage, other conditions that attract rats. Because the last thing we want to do is, have a concerned citizen, come for us to help and then end up getting a fine. There are many resources available on our health department website. I can share a link to that as well. Sometimes we do recommend that people kind of hire external help, exterminators, etc. That's always an option. And then lastly, I will say for interior pests, as I mentioned, those kinds of issues are addressed by HPD. However, at the health department, we do have a program called the Healthy Homes Program. And this program is geared towards addressing interior pests that may trigger allergens for people. So these are people that have asthma or other health conditions. And so we can assist in addressing some of the interior pest problems as a way to combat some of the common allergens in the home. However, this does require a referral from a medical provider and certification of a person having asthma as a medical condition. So that is a very, kind of specific criteria, but I do just want to share that that's another option for folks who may have trouble kind of controlling pests or other conditions inside the home. And the Healthy Homes program addresses pests and mold inside the house. But again, you need a referral from a medical provider, and I'm happy to provide links to those as well if that's of interest to people. So I will pause there. I really appreciate you all taking the time to listen to me talk. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have. Again, I apologize that my colleague wasn't able to join me tonight. But any kind of specific more kind of in-depth, unique situations or pest control questions, I'm happy to take those back to the team and get them answered to you all in a timely manner. So I'll pause there. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Yes, thank you, Kenneth. Does anybody online have any questions?
Yes, I have another question.
Sure.
Kenneth, I would like to ask you, so let's say if a property owner, they receive that notice to abate, but they're not able to follow through with any of the recommendations that you've made, not you specifically, but that were made because they cannot afford it. Are there services that they can seek in order to, take those actions?
So that's a great question. So, when we issue the commissioner's order to abate, we do advise that if community members have questions or concerns about addressing the issues, that they reach out to us. I don't want to promise that there are some low cost or no cost services out there. But I do know in the past there have been some organizations that, like community organizations, not affiliated with the health department, but just, kind of like advocacy organizations that work with community members to kind of help them address some of these concerns at low costs. But again, anytime that there's a situation like that, we absolutely, recommend that people reach out to us first and let us know what the situation is. And that way, we can try to offer, whatever guidance we can.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the online audience? Okay, so I think we can wrap this up. I am just going to recommend, again, that anyone who sees rat activity in their neighborhood should attend Rat Academy. Ursula sends it out. Anytime I get the email. Kenneth said, the next two are May 14th and 21st.
Yes.
So much information. The sessions run about an hour and a half. And just so much good information about, how rats have poor vision, so they go by smell, and then, they smell the garbage. They'll travel up to 100 feet, I think, 75 to 100 feet for food. And how to detect a burrow hole. And if you see one rat, and Kenneth, please feel free to interrupt me anywhere if I'm making stuff up here. But if you see one rat, there's another 10 in the burrow. So you really need to destroy any burrow holes you find. So that's just about the first 10 minutes of Rat Academy. So if you have reason to think there's activity in your neighborhood, just sit in on one of these sessions and learn more about how to get them out of your community. And any other thoughts, Kenneth? Did I?
No, that's great. I will just second what you said, about submitting 311 complaints. I have heard from community members, that people, are kind of frustrated with the process, and it may take too long. People may think that, why would I submit these problems? They never get fixed. I just want to please implore people to submit complaints, not just for rats, for everything. This is one of the main ways as a city, not just the health department, but all city agencies. This is a way that we monitor the problems and issues that we see in our communities. There may be, plenty of issues that we don't see, that we don't observe, because they're not reported, right? And so for any kind of conditions that you see, whether they be potholes or light fixtures, rats, of course, improper disposal of garbage, all of those things help our city agencies know what problems are happening, and then of course to address them. And so that would be my last bit of advice, request, recommendation. Please use 311.
Yes, and everybody should know all this data can be queried. It takes some practice, but like all of us can go in and download 311 data. You have to be very careful how you do it because it's about like 20 million rows of data, but there are filters, so you can kind of select. Oh, I'm sorry. Lee, you have a hand raised.
No, sorry, that was a mistake.
Oh, okay. Okay, if nobody has any other questions, then I'm gonna wrap this up. Going once, going twice, any other questions from anyone? Okay, we're a wrap then at 5 minutes to 8. Thank you, Kenneth, so much for your time today. And yeah, we're done.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope everyone has a good rest of their night. And Carla, of course, please reach out, if you have any questions, concerns. I'm always, available to answer any questions that you all may have.
Yes, will do. Okay, thank you. Good night, everybody.
Everybody
Thank
have
you.
a blessed
Good night.
evening.
Thank you,
Good
Kenneth.
night.
Thank you,
Carla,
Carla.
Ursula, get
Thanks,
home
everyone.
safe.